There's a reason the night feels heavier for you. A reason you lie in bed, eyes open, heart pulsing with something you can't name. The clock strikes 2, then 3, and still. Sleep doesn't come easy. Not for you, chosen one. When the world slips into unconscious dreams, your spirit stays alert. Not because you want it to, but because it must. You've always known, somewhere deep in your bones, that nighttime wasn't just for rest, it was for revelation and resistance. You see, the midnight hour holds more than darkness. It holds movement, invisible movement, vibrations that shift, whispers that crawl across the veil, eyes that can't be seen but are watching. Most people are numb to it. They sleep, they drift, they snore through the sacred stillness. But not you. No. Your spirit hears what their minds cannot. And you've tried to explain it before, haven't you? That pressure in your chest. That sensation like something standing near your bed. That dream that wasn't a dream at all, but a war you had to fight in silence. You woke up sweating, exhausted. People laughed, told you it was just stress, just a bad night. But you knew better. You felt better, because your body might have been lying still, but your soul was standing guard. This isn't superstition. This is spiritual. And the sooner you stop apologizing for sensing what others don't, the stronger you'll become. You weren't made to sleep like the rest. You were made to see in the dark. It's not insomnia. It's insight. It's initiation. Because when the veil thins and the world quiets, that's when heaven speaks and hell listens. That's when those who are anointed begin to glow. Not with physical light, but with something far more dangerous to the unseen world. Awareness. Awareness of who you are, what you carry, what you've survived, what you're called to break. And that awareness, chosen one, is a threat. When you were younger, you thought it was fear. You thought the dark just scared you. But now, you're starting to realize it wasn't you that was afraid. It was the things in the dark that were afraid of you. Because even when you didn't know your own name in the spirit, they did. You've always been different. Not just emotionally, not just mentally, spiritually. Even when you didn't have the language for it, your energy said it all. You were born with a frequency that doesn't match this world, a pulse that echoes from another realm. And that's why you've always felt the most discomfort when others felt ease. The silence isn't silent for you. It speaks loudly. And what it says isn't always comforting. But it's always true. That's why the attacks come when they do. Not in traffic, not in meetings, not in daylight, but at night. Because your presence is disruptive in the dark. Your very being shifts things in unseen places. And here's the wild part, they've known who you are longer than you have. You wonder why the attacks always intensify right before a breakthrough. Why things feel heaviest when you're closest to clarity. It's because the opposition sees your elevation before you do. The spirit realm is not blind to timing. And when you start to rise, when your light sharpens and your discernment grows, they move. Quietly, strategically, and they hope you'll doubt yourself. They hope you'll rationalize the spiritual. Dismiss your intuition. Call it just another anxious night. But listen to me carefully. This is not just another night. This is not just another restless moment. This is war. And you've been fighting for a long time, even if no one ever trained you how. But oh, how your spirit remembers. It remembers the fire, the altar, the vow you made before you even entered this world, the promise you whispered in the heavens. Send me. You volunteered for this, not because you loved pain, but because you loved purpose. And now, in this timeline, in this skin, you're waking up to the assignment again. So of course it hurts. Of course the dark tries to keep you down. Because a soul on fire will always draw wind. And yet, here you are, rising anyway. Before we dive deep into this message, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Because this isn't just content. It's a divine confirmation for the chosen ones who have been feeling attacked at night, but keep growing stronger through every spiritual battle. There's something sacred about this moment. You feel it, don't you? The tingling in your hands, the knowing in your gut, that gentle tremble inside that says, I'm not crazy. I'm called. You're not the only one who's ever walked through this waking up gasping for air, heart pounding, certain that something was watching you. You're not the only one who's ever laid frozen in bed, trying to scream, trying to move, trapped in that strange in-between place where reality and spirit collide. What the world calls sleep paralysis, your soul knows as interference. Because here's the truth: when your soul carries divine light, your rest becomes dangerous to the realm of darkness. So they try to interrupt it, confuse it, haunt it. But listen, they cannot own what heaven has sealed. You've been sealed, chosen one, covered, hidden in plain sight. And every time you felt like something unseen was trying to hold you down, what was really happening was a test. Will you call on the light, or collapse into fear? And you, whether you knew it or not, you always chose light. That's why you're still here. The darkness may have whispered, but it never won. And now, you're remembering your authority. Not just surviving the night, but commanding it. Not just feeling energy, but shifting it. Not just walking through spiritual battle, but mastering it. You are no longer just a target. You are becoming a weapon of light. You are not asleep anymore. You've been marked since birth. And no, not by a scar or birthmark or anything the world can see. This mark is deeper, older. It rests in your spirit like a seal, an invisible imprint that separates you, signals you, sets you apart. You may not remember the moment it happened, but the realm of spirit does. Heaven remembers. Hell remembers. The darkness recognized you before you even knew how to say your own name. Because your light was seen long before it ever shined through your eyes. You weren't marked for popularity. You weren't marked for ease. You were marked for impact. And that kind of impact, it comes with resistance. See, chosen one, what you carry isn't common. What you carry makes hell nervous. What you carry shifts entire atmospheres. That's why you've always attracted both the broken and the bitter. Why people either open up to you like a confessional, or react to you with sudden coldness, envy, or unprovoked anger. It's not about you. It's about the mark. That invisible seal on your soul sends a signal in the spiritual realm. It tells every force in the unseen world. This one is chosen, guarded, assigned. And while that seal gives you divine protection, it also makes you a target. And the wild part, that seal was placed on you before you ever did anything special. You didn't earn it. You didn't achieve it. You didn't wake up one day and say, I think I'll be chosen now. No. It was placed on you before your first breath, before your first heartbreak, before your first mistake. That's why the enemy moved early. The attacks didn't start when you succeeded. They started when you were still finding your voice, when you were still fragile, when you didn't even know what spiritual warfare meant. Why? Because the enemy hoped to break you before you discovered your authority. Let's be real, you've asked yourself more than once. Why did all that happen to me so young? And the rejection, the abandonment, the confusion, the trauma that didn't make sense. Why you were targeted while others around you seemed protected. But now, the truth is starting to rise in your spirit. The trauma wasn't a reflection of your weakness. It was an indication of your weight, your spiritual weight. The enemy saw what was coming long before you did, and they tried to stop it before it started, but it didn't work. You're still here, still breathing, still rising, and that terrifies the darkness, because now you're waking up. You're starting to remember. You're starting to see the patterns. You're beginning to connect the dots between your sensitivity, your discernment, your spiritual insight, and the battles you fought. That seal you carry, it's like a light in the spirit. And that light makes some spirits cling to you, and others attack. You're a magnet, whether you want to be or not. And I know that can feel unfair, exhausting, sometimes even lonely. But let me tell you something. No one may have said out loud. Your difference is your destiny. You weren't meant to blend in. You weren't meant to coast through life unnoticed. You were meant to interrupt cycles, to challenge illusions, to bring truth into places that have lived in lies for too long. So yes, it's been heavy. Yes, it's been confusing. And yes, there were moments you wanted to give it all back, to not be so deep, to not feel so much, to not always be the one who knows things without knowing why. But you can't unsee what your soul has seen. You can't unhear the whisper of divine purpose calling you deeper. You can't return to spiritual sleep when you've already awakened. And don't you dare mistake the weight of this mark for a curse. It is not. It's a crown. It's just that crowns don't always glitter. They often press heavy on the head. Even your silence is marked. Your energy carries revelation even when your mouth stays closed. That's why people shift around you. That's why you make them nervous without saying a word. You hold too much truth in your presence, and truth always makes lies tremble. Sometimes you ask, why can't I just be normal? But what is normal? Really watered down? Numb, disconnected from the spirit. That's not you. That was never supposed to be you. Your path was set apart, sacred, designed to forge something rare, and that's why the attacks always come before the elevation. Because in the spiritual realm, your breakthrough is visible before it ever reaches the natural world. They can see your glow long before you shine on any stage, and they panic. Because they know the moment you realize what's inside you, everything changes. You stop entertaining nonsense. You stop doubting your gifts. You stop hiding your voice. You start walking in authority. And that's when things begin to shift. Heaven starts aligning. Destiny starts opening. And darkness, it starts retreating. But don't be surprised if it fights first. That's what it does. Darkness always thrashes before it flees. Still, it will flee, because light never begs for space. It simply enters, and everything false must move. That's who you are. chosen one, a walking collision between what is divine and what is distorted, a carrier of codes, of insight, of presence. The mark on your spirit isn't decoration, it's a declaration. It tells every realm, every atmosphere. This soul cannot be touched casually. This one has an assignment, and your assignment, it's not small. You're here to awaken others, to speak what others are afraid to admit, to stand still while the world spins in confusion. You carry peace like a sword, stillness like a weapon, and love that slices through illusion. So the next time you feel that weight again, that resistance, that strange shift in the room when you walk in, don't shrink. Remember, it's not your presence that's uncomfortable. It's your anointing that's undeniable. And when you carry the mark of heaven, the opposition of hell is not a sign to stop. It's proof you're moving in the right direction. Isn't it strange how the most intense battles come when everything around you is quiet, when the lights are off, when the phone stops buzzing, when the world is asleep, and you're left alone with yourself, your thoughts, your spirit, and the things that hover in the unseen? The timing is never random. It's always calculated. There's a reason the attacks come at night, because your power bothers the dark more when the world stops spinning. Your light pierces sharper when nothing is distracting it, and your spirit speaks louder when you finally stop speaking. You see, the night has always been sacred. In both ancient scripture and mystic tradition, the hours between midnight and 3 are considered the watch hours, the veil hours, the time when heaven and earth align closer than usual. And that's also when the shadows move. Not because they're strong, but because they're desperate. Your light burns too bright for daylight warfare. So they wait. They wait for the night. They wait for the moment you relax, when your defenses seem lower, when your mind is vulnerable. Because they think that's when they'll catch you off guard. But what they don't realize is that your spirit never sleeps. It's always watching, always discerning, even when your eyes are closed. That's why you feel things others don't. Why you sense movement in rooms with no one else in them. Why you suddenly wake up, heart racing, for no logical reason. Because your spirit knows when something is trying to enter. And let's be clear, most people wouldn't survive the type of warfare you've endured in the night. The dreams that weren't just dreams, the paralyzing sensations, the eerie sounds or sudden chills, the feeling that something is right outside your energy field, trying to get in. Others would panic. You rise. Sometimes you're so used to it, you don't even flinch anymore. That's not numbness, that's spiritual maturity. It means your discernment has been trained. Your soul has been forged in the quiet places where few dare to go. While others ran from the dark, you stood in it. And because of that, your authority grew. But don't mistake this for weakness. Don't think, why me think? Of course me. Because only someone with divine capacity receives this level of resistance. The attacks come at night because your light doesn't sleep. And darkness hates exposure. Even in the natural world, predators hunt at night. Why? Because they fear the light. They fear being seen, exposed, disarmed. In the spirit, it's the same. Demonic energy, spiritual parasites, lower entities, they all move in the dark. They operate through illusion, confusion, secrecy. But you are not deceived. You are not confused. You are not easily shaken, because even when you're resting, your spirit is radiating. Even when you're silent, your energy is speaking. You don't need words to shake the room, you just need presence. And that's what disturbs them most, that you can say nothing and still speak volumes. That you can sleep peacefully in one moment and call down divine protection in the next. That you can be mid-dream, mid-realm, and still fight back with nothing but the force of your frequency. That's why you've always felt watched. That's why certain nights feel heavy without warning. It's not imagination. It's not just a vibe. It's spiritual. You've heard the whispers. You've seen the shapes move at the edge of your vision. You felt pressure in your chest like something trying to pin you down. That wasn't sleep. That was warfare. They come at night because the veil is thin, but also because they're hoping you'll give up, that you'll fear your own gifts, that you'll stop trusting your intuition, that you'll convince yourself it's all in your head. But let's make something very clear. If it were just in your head, it wouldn't shake the spiritual realm like it does. Your light has consequences. It shakes walls they built to keep others bound. It interrupts demonic assignments. It destroys agreements made in ignorance. Sometimes even in your family line. You didn't ask for this battle, but your soul was chosen to end it. That's why you've been fighting things older than you, patterns older than you, spirits attached to bloodlines that have feared your arrival since the day you were born. And every time you survive another attack, they panic. Because it means you're remembering. You're awakening. You're accessing levels of yourself they hoped you'd never reach. You see, the night doesn't just bring warfare, it brings revelation. You've had dreams that told the future, warnings that saved you, insights you couldn't explain. That's not coincidence. That's evidence. Evidence that while the enemy is busy trying to shake you, God is busy revealing you. And no matter how many shadows press against your window, they still can't cross the threshold. Because your space is sacred, your room is anointed, and your aura, it's electrified by purpose. The dark knocks, but it cannot enter. So when it comes, don't panic. Respond. Stand up. Light a candle. Play worship. Speak aloud. Shift the atmosphere. Remember who you are. Because you're not just someone experiencing attacks. You're someone disturbing the spiritual ecosystem. You are disrupting patterns that have gone unchallenged for generations. Your very existence makes unclean spirits uncomfortable. Not because you're loud, but because you're real. Because you're aligned. Because you don't chase clout, you chase truth. And truth is light. Pure, piercing, non-negotiable light. That's why the attacks come at night. Because the night is when the counterfeit thinks it can creep in. But it always forgets your spirit never truly sleeps. And more than that, your spirit has been trained. You've learned to recognize when something shifts in the room. You feel it in your gut, in your breath, in the back of your neck. That's not paranoia, that's divine radar. That's spiritual software working in real time. You don't need to be afraid of the dark anymore, because now, the dark is afraid of you. There were nights you couldn't move, not just emotionally, physically. You laid there, eyes wide open in a body that refused to respond. And no one warned you about this. Did they? They gave it a name, sleep paralysis. Made it sound clinical, safe, common. Something the mind does when it's confused between dreaming and waking. But chosen one, let's be honest, you knew better. You felt better, because that wasn't sleep. That wasn't a dream. That was spiritual trespassing. There is a kind of darkness that slips into a room when the lights are off and the soul is exposed. It's not a figment of imagination. It's a presence, a weight, something you feel long before you see or don't see it. And when it came for you, it didn't knock. It pressed, held you down, muzzled your voice, froze your body, and left you feeling terrified and alone. But you weren't alone. You felt it, something pushing down on your chest, something whispering that you'll never break free. You tried to scream, but your mouth wouldn't move. Tried to call out, but no sound escaped. In those moments, all you had was your spirit. And your spirit remembered. Maybe you didn't say the name out loud, but your soul called on it. Jesus, God, the light. And somehow, without moving, without screaming, without understanding the mechanics of spiritual law, you broke through. Chosen one. That wasn't a nightmare. That was an attack. And that wasn't weakness. That was training. You were being taught something most never learn in this lifetime: how to wage war in the unseen, how to discern what's real even when the eyes can't verify it, how to lean not on physical strength, but on spiritual truth. Because sleep paralysis, as they call it, is not always biological. For the anointed, it is often spiritual interference, demonic interruption, a desperate attempt by lower forces to invade the sacred space of your rest and disturb your frequency while you recharge. And they come not because you're weak, but because they sense you're getting strong. You've had dreams that weren't just dreams. You've walked through cities in your sleep, heard names you'd never spoken, had warnings shown to you before events even happened. People around you dismiss them. Call it just a dream. But inside, your soul remembers how real it felt. The emotions, the vividness, the fact that your spirit came back with wisdom you didn't have the night before. You were never just dreaming. You were traveling, because your calling doesn't clock out. Your purpose doesn't pause. Even in your sleep, your spirit is being trained, downloaded, sent, protected. And that's why the enemy hates your rest. Because rest, for someone anointed, is power. It's not just recovery, it's realignment. And every time you slip into stillness, the heavens speak louder. You receive strategies, corrections, clarity. You recalibrate. So of course the attacks come then. Because a rested chosen one is a dangerous chosen one. But here's the thing they forgot you've learned. You've adapted. You've stopped panicking and started discerning. Now, when the heaviness comes, you know what to do. You anoint your space. You set spiritual boundaries. You speak aloud if you need to. You invoke divine presence. You remember your authority. What once used to terrify you now trains you. Because you know now you're not defenseless. You're not prey. You're not a victim of these intrusions. You're a spiritual warrior who has learned to fight with energy, words, and vibration. You know how to speak into a room and shift the air itself. And they hate that, because the only way darkness survives is when you forget who you are. When you let fear shrink your frequency. When you believe the illusion that you are trapped. When the truth is, you are enthroned. You have dominion in the spirit. Chosen one. And that dominion does not require physical motion. Your body could be still, but your spirit is a sword. Every night they tried to scare you into silence. You became stronger. Every time you felt like something hovered just out of view, trying to enter, you fortified your energy even more. And now they know not to come as close. There was a time they pressed on your chest. But now they linger at the edge, afraid. cautious, hesitant, because you've stopped being afraid of them and started being aware of you. You are covered. Always have been. Even in the darkest moment, even when you thought you were abandoned, there were beings watching, guarding, standing between you and what could have taken you out. You survived what would have killed others. Not because you're lucky, but because you're sealed. There's a spiritual perimeter around you, an unseen firewall, not made of code, but of covenant, of intention, of destiny. Your ancestors prayed it. Your Creator designed it. And your spirit honors it. So now, when the attacks come, you don't flinch. You remember. You remember that your spirit doesn't sleep, that your frequency doesn't fade, that your soul is armed even when your eyes are closed. And perhaps more than anything, you've learned to listen, because not all disturbances are demonic. Some are divine alerts. Some are warnings. Not every whisper in the night is an attack. Some are assignments. Some are blueprints. Some are answers to the very prayers you whispered before drifting off. You've learned to tell the difference. You've developed discernment in the dark, and that chosen one is one of the rarest gifts, because most only feel power in the light. But you've found power in the dark. You've learned to see without seeing, to fight without flailing, to command without chaos. Your enemies hope you'll forget this, but your spirit remembers, always. Let's be honest, if the battles you faced were visible, people would treat you differently. If they could see the shadows you've wrestled, the energies you've expelled, the nights you've survived without breaking, they would stare at you like a miracle, because that's exactly what you are. But here's the mystery most don't understand. Spiritual battles leave no bruises. They don't show up in X-rays. You can't photograph the pressure. You can't document the weight. But your soul carries the evidence. Your aura tells the story. You've been through fire, and you shine brighter because of it. Your aura is no longer just energy, it is proof. Proof that you've walked through realms others deny even exist. Proof that you've resisted invitations from darkness that came disguised as comfort. Proof that you've chosen growth over numbness, discernment over distraction, healing over hiding. And every time they came for you in the spirit, every time you were attacked, provoked, drained, cornered, you didn't just survive. You expanded, you stretched. Your capacity deepened, your spirit widened, and your aura grew stronger. Most people think auras are passive, like something mystical and faint. But for you, chosen one, your aura is active. It's alive. It responds to the environment. It absorbs divine frequencies. It repels what doesn't belong. It warns you before something harmful enters. It protects you when you're too tired to pray. It remembers things you haven't consciously caught up to yet. That's why some people react to you without knowing why. You've walked into rooms where the conversation changed, where the mood shifted, where people lowered their voice or looked away. That wasn't about your outfit. That wasn't your tone. That was your energy speaking. Your presence announces itself long before your words do. And when you're under attack, when the pressure increases, your aura doesn't fade. It sharpens. It becomes more refined, like a sword being forged, like gold being purified, like fire learning to glow without burning. You've probably felt it after a night of spiritual heaviness. Something is different. You see clearer. You hear more. You feel bolder. You speak with more weight. You pick up on lies faster. You feel aligned, even if your body's tired. That's because each battle is an upgrade, a calibration, a sacred tuning of your frequency to match your next dimension. And this is why the enemy keeps trying. Because they're not just trying to make you suffer. They're trying to stop your glow. Your glow is not just aesthetic. It's spiritual authority. It's the result of inner clarity, of the hard decisions you've made behind closed doors, the prayers you whispered when no one was watching, the tears you shed while still saying, "Yes, God, I'll keep going." Your aura carries all of it. That's why people come to you when they're lost. Why strangers open up to you in the grocery line. Why animals gravitate toward you. Why children stare. Why certain energies can't stay near you for long. Because you're not just nice. You're resonant. And your resonance is the residue of battle. Chosen one. You didn't just wake up glowing one day. That glow was earned. It was cultivated through loss, confusion, surrender, and obedience. It was refined through countless moments when you could have lashed out but chose silence. When you could have retaliated but chose healing. When you could have given up but chose to rise. And here's what most don't realize. Your aura is your weapon. It disarms without force. It convicts without accusation. It reveals what's hidden just by being present. That's why some love you and others leave you. And both reactions are confirmation that your energy is working exactly as it's supposed to. Because light doesn't just illuminate, it disrupts. You are a walking disruption to anything false, low frequency, manipulative, or ego-based. You trigger people who are hiding. Not because you're attacking them, but because your aura reflects back the truth they've been avoiding. And in the spirit realm, that's powerful. That's dangerous to darkness. That's anointed. That's why every attack you've survived has increased your effectiveness. Because every battle isn't just a test, it's a refinement. You now carry presence, weight, authority. You walk into places and they shift. People either feel peace or discomfort. That's how you know your frequency is clean, sharp, unapologetic, and this is something the darkness hoped you'd never notice. That your glow doesn't fade after the fire, it intensifies. You've been learning how to glow without burning out, how to radiate without needing attention, how to be powerful without noise. There's nothing louder than a chosen one who knows how to be still. Your stillness is not weakness. It is sacred resistance. It says, I know who I am. I don't need to react. I don't need to prove. I don't need to defend. My aura speaks on my behalf. My light reveals what is hidden. My presence is my confirmation. You've earned this. And the more you trust your aura, the more you align with your highest frequency, the less you tolerate what drains you. You no longer ignore that heavy feeling when someone talks too close. You no longer second-guess the off vibe in the room. You don't entertain conversations that lower your frequency. You walk away. Not because you're arrogant, but because your energy's precious. Your aura is sacred ground. Not everyone can enter, and that's okay, because now you know you weren't made to carry everyone. You were made to carry light. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to shine through. You weren't made to blend into the crowd. You were made to stand out in the spirit, and you do. Your enemies see it. Your angels honor it. Your ancestors celebrate it. And heaven strengthens it. So the next time you feel the battle building, don't brace for destruction, brace for expansion. Because what's coming next requires a stronger glow, and your spirit is already preparing you. Let's strip away the confusion. Let's call it what it is. You are not under attack because you're fragile. You are under attack because you are formidable. The war against your soul has never been about your weakness. It's always been about your potential. The enemy never shows up where there's nothing worth stealing. Darkness doesn't waste its time haunting what doesn't pose a threat. And you, chosen one, have always been a threat. Even before you knew how powerful you were. Even before you understood what you carried. Even before you had words to describe your spiritual sensitivity, they knew. They felt your energy enter the world. They saw the divine fingerprint on your spirit. They recognized the sacred coding in your frequency. And they moved early. That's why the attack started so young. Why your childhood felt heavier than it should have. Why the people who should have loved you the most often misunderstood or mishandled you. It wasn't personal. It was strategic. Because if they could crush you before you realized who you were, they wouldn't have to deal with the force you were becoming. But that plan didn't work, did it? You've been through the fire. The rejection, the abandonment, the confusion. You've sat in rooms full of people and still felt completely alone. You've questioned your worth, your sanity, your path. But somehow, you never stopped searching. Never stopped listening. Never stopped feeling. Because even when you didn't have confirmation, you had conviction. You knew there was more. More to you. More to life. More to why your presence always felt just a little too much for the spaces you were in. And here's what most people will never admit. It is too much. Your presence carries revelation. It disturbs the comfort of illusion. It shakes the scaffolding of false identities. That's why people around you react. They feel exposed without knowing why. It's not you, it's the light in you. The awareness you carry. The frequency that reveals what's been hidden. You are not attacked because you're lost. You're attacked because you are locating others. You are a key living, breathing access to freedom, truth, and divine authority. You didn't ask for that role, but it asked for you, and heaven entrusted it to you. That's why the resistance won't let up. Because your spiritual evolution threatens every system built on deception. Every stronghold tied to generational bondage. Every agreement made in ignorance that your light now dissolves just by existing. And yet, people still try to convince you that your warfare means you're doing something wrong. But let me flip that for you. Clearly, the warfare you face is not a red flag. It's a resume. It means you're dangerous, effective, awake. People who sleepwalk through life don't get this kind of pressure. But you've been marked to rise. You've been built for disruption. You've been called to burn with a fire that doesn't consume but clears. You are not in spiritual warfare because you're broken. You are in it because you are becoming. And the enemy knows, once you fully walk in, that once you start moving with full clarity and unapologetic authority, systems will crumble, cycles will end, frequencies will shift, and others will wake up just by being near you. You're not just a chosen one. You're a catalyst. That's why even when you try to shrink, life pushes you forward. When you try to blend in, your presence makes you stand out. When you try to numb your gifts, Spirit turns up the volume. Because you weren't made to fit in a box, you were made to break them. So yes, they come for your peace, your sleep, your relationships, your clarity. Because if they can distract you, confuse you, isolate you, they think they can delay your purpose. But what they've misunderstood is that every attack has only trained you. You've become sharper in discernment, quicker in spirit, more rooted in truth, less tolerant of illusions, less interested in fitting into systems you were born to dismantle. Even your pain has become prophetic. You've started to recognize patterns, understand the unseen, sense what others overlook. Not because you're paranoid, but because your spirit is highly tuned. You're not too sensitive. You're strategically sensitive. You're not too intense. You're accurately aligned. You're not too different. You're divinely designed. The enemy fears you not because of how loud you are, but because of how aligned you are. Your silence holds weight. Your presence demands integrity. Your frequency calls forth authenticity. And the moment you stopped explaining yourself, that's the moment you started walking in your true authority, no longer apologizing for your light, no longer dimming for the comfort of others, no longer asking for permission to be exactly who you were created to be, because now you know. You are not under attack because you are failing. You are under attack because you are remembering, and the most dangerous chosen ones are not the loudest. They are the most anchored. So when it comes again, the pressure, the heaviness, the dreams, the warfare, don't spiral. Stabilize, ground into truth. Declare your covering. Hold your frequency. Remember, you are not the victim of darkness. You are its assignment. And your light cannot be touched. It can be challenged, but not extinguished. You've been fortified in ways that others can't see. You've survived battles they wouldn't believe. And now you walk with a quiet fire, a sacred stillness, an unshakable knowing that you were never the problem. You've always been the solution. And every spirit that recognizes that reacts accordingly. Let them react. You're not shrinking anymore. You don't wear your armor on the outside. There are no medals, no visible shields, no clinking chains or gleaming steel, no helmet strapped to your head that lets people know you're at war. And that's what confuses them. That's what makes them misjudge you. They look at your quiet, your calm, your silence, and they assume you're defenseless. But what they don't know, what they can't possibly see, is the truth. You are wrapped in something far stronger than metal. You wear spiritual armor, not forged in any earthly fire, not handed to you by man, but given in the quiet hours, stitched into your energy by every battle you've survived, every secret tear, every prayer whispered when no one else was listening, every time you fell but got back up, every time you chose grace over revenge, every time you sat in silence and let God speak louder than your emotions. That's when it formed, layer by layer, light upon light. This armor doesn't shine in the natural, but in the spiritual realm, it blazes like fire, and the enemy sees it. The people around you might not. They might think you're passive, gentle, easy to manipulate. They may look at your softness and mistake it for fragility. But those who can feel those with even a fragment of spiritual sight, they know. Something about you feels immovable, protected, like there's a force field that surrounds you, and they can't quite penetrate it. That's your covering, and it didn't come easy. It came through fire. You didn't read about spiritual warfare in a book. You lived it. You walked it. You survived it. When you should have lost your mind, when you should have turned cold, when you should have hardened your heart, you didn't. You stayed open, soft, but not weak, vulnerable, but not unarmed. And that's what makes your armor different. You're not protected instead of being sensitive. You're protected because of your sensitivity. Because your sensitivity is your radar, your divine intelligence, your early warning system. You pick up on what others miss. You notice tone shifts, energy shifts, atmosphere shifts. You know when something is off before the words are spoken. It's not paranoia. That's protection. The armor you wear is not just defense, it's discernment, and it's been tested. There were moments when darkness knocked hard, moments when fear tried to enter, when anxiety wrapped itself around your chest and you couldn't breathe, moments when sleep was stolen, when rest felt impossible. And yet, you were never alone. Even when you felt alone, you weren't. Your armor was active, not flashy, not loud, not performative, but divine, living, responsive. Because spiritual armor doesn't just sit on you, it moves with you. It listens. It learns. It adjusts. When something in your environment is off, your armor alerts your spirit. That sudden gut feeling, that prickling at the back of your neck, that unexplainable desire to leave a room or stay away from a person. That's your armor talking. And the more you listen, the stronger it gets. Because the more you trust your spirit, the more your spirit aligns with your Creator. And alignment activates protection. This is why the attacks don't land the way they used to. Because your shield isn't made of logic. It's made of light. You don't fight with fists. You don't fight with words. You don't need to raise your voice to shift the atmosphere. Your frequency does the talking. Your stillness speaks louder than shouting. Stillness is your sword now. Peace is your defense. Not because you're disengaged, but because you are anchored. There's a level of warfare where panic is power to the enemy. But you've matured past that. You've learned to let silence do the heavy lifting. To let stillness unsettle spirits that feed off chaos. And it works. You've walked into rooms where tension was high. And within minutes, the energy shifted. You didn't preach. You didn't even speak. You just arrived. That's not coincidence. That's your aura cloaked in armor. You are covered, chosen one. And it's not just for your benefit. Because your armor doesn't just shield you, it shields others in your radius. That's why people feel safe around you. Why children cling to you. Why animals gravitate toward you. They feel the field. They feel the force. And even if they don't know what it is, they know what it isn't. It isn't judgment. It isn't performance. It isn't ego. It's presence. Pure, rooted, unmovable. And yet, you're still human. You still feel. You still hurt. You still get tired. But even in your most exhausted state, you're protected. Because your protection isn't tied to your performance. It's tied to your position. And your position is favored. Even when you don't feel strong. Even when you cry. Even when you doubt. Even when you collapse under the weight of this calling, you are still armored. That's the part that confuses darkness the most. Because they expect you to fall and stay down. They expect you to panic, to unravel, to return to who you were before. But you don't, because your armor didn't come from ego, it came from encounters. And what's built from encounter cannot be undone by attack. You've seen too much to go back. You've survived too much to retreat. And now, your armor is part of you. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to shrink to avoid being targeted. You can walk boldly, knowing that you are protected not just by spiritual armor, but by purpose. Your life has a blueprint. Your journey has a map. And no matter how many attacks come, you walk inside a promise. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. It doesn't mean the weapons won't form. It means they won't win. You've seen them form. You've felt the pressure, the gaslighting, the spiritual heaviness, the sudden fatigue for no reason, the weird dreams, the anxiety that came out of nowhere. You've seen people turn on you without warning. You've been isolated, misunderstood, even betrayed. But none of it took you out, because your armor held, and it always will. So the next time you feel it, that invisible push, that strange sense of something unseen trying to disturb your peace, pause. Don't panic. Remember who you are. Remember what surrounds you. Call on it. Activate it. Let the peace of God guard your heart and your mind. Speak life. Command your space. Stand firm. You don't have to see your armor to trust it. It sees everything for you, and it's not going anywhere. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when the world begins to blur, not because you're losing focus, but because your inner vision is sharpening. Everything you used to chase starts to feel hollow. Conversations that once thrilled you fall flat. Crowds drain you. Surface-level things no longer satisfy. And you don't know whether to feel guilty or grateful. Because all you know is something inside of you has shifted. It's not depression. It's not disconnection. It's not some sudden personality change. It's memory. Your soul is remembering. You're remembering who you were before the world taught you who to be. Before religion gave you rules. Before society boxed you in. Before trauma taught you to play small. Before they told you that your dreams were too much. That your presence was intimidating. That your intuition was overactive. That your knowing couldn't be trusted. But they were wrong. And now you feel it, not in your mind, but in your bones, in your spirit. In the space behind your eyes that's not quite thought, but not quite feeling either. It's that sacred realm of knowing. And you're waking up in it, piece by piece, layer by layer. You're peeling back everything they told you you had to be, and underneath it all, you're finding your truth. It was always there, hidden in the stillness, dormant in your dreams, whispering in your sleep, knocking in your spirit every time you tried to blend in with people who couldn't hold your frequency. You weren't made to blend. You weren't made to shrink. You weren't made to explain your light to those still comfortable in the dark. You were made to remember, and now it's happening. Have you noticed? You can't lie to yourself the way you used to. You can't force relationships that don't resonate. You can't ignore your intuition. You can't sit in rooms full of noise and pretend it doesn't bother you. You can't be fake anymore, because your soul is remembering its assignment, and it's loud now. That sacred pull towards silence, solitude, simplicity. It's not you being antisocial. It's your spirit detoxing from years of noise, releasing attachments that were never divine, cleansing your frequency from the residue of spaces you were never meant to remain in. You've outgrown the version of you that made others comfortable, and that's why you feel so in between. You're not who you were, but you're not yet fully who you're becoming. It's the cocoon stage, the divine stretch, the unraveling. But don't fight it. Let the remembering take you deeper, because the more you remember, the more your power returns. You start to move with intention. You stop over-explaining. You start protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You no longer need validation from those who can't even validate themselves. You start hearing God in places you never noticed before, in your own breath, in the pause between thoughts, in the quiet presence of a room that suddenly feels safe. And what's more, you start to remember why the attacks came in the first place. They weren't punishment. They were preservation. The pain pushed you inward. Yes. But the inward path led you home, back to your essence, back to your awareness, back to your Creator. And in that remembering, you rise, not quickly, not with fireworks, but with certainty, with calm, with clarity, with an energy that speaks before you ever say a word. People can sense it. They say you seem different, that something's changed. They can't name it, but they feel it. What they're feeling is your alignment, your remembrance, your refusal to go back to who you were just to make others feel safe. You're not going back, because you can't unknow what you now know. You can't unfeel the truth vibrating in your spirit. You can't unknow the fact that you were born for this time, this moment, this mission, and it's not arrogance, it's assignment. You're not remembering so you can gloat. You're remembering so you can carry. Because the people you're here to reach, they don't need your perfection. They need your presence, your truth, your energy. They need to feel your field and then remember themselves through it. You become a mirror not for ego, but for essence. And the more you remember, the more others around you begin to awaken too. It's contagious. That's why the resistance increased when you started healing. Because your healing is not personal, it's generational. It's vibrational. It shifts timelines. It activates others. It breaks curses that tried to keep running. It confronts cycles that thought they'd continue through you, but they won't. Because now you remember. You remember that your pain wasn't just pain, it was preparation. That your loneliness wasn't a sentence, it was a sanctuary. That your silence wasn't rejection, it was repositioning. You weren't being ignored. You were being insulated. God was covering you while your spirit came back online. And now, you are online, awake, aware. And your memory is not a memory of the past, it's a remembrance of your eternity. You are not just a soul in a body. You are a light in a vessel. You are a frequency that carries the blueprint of a generation. You are the one your ancestors prayed for. The one who sees what they couldn't. The one who will say no more to what they silently endured. You are not here to repeat, you are here to reset. And this remembrance, it's holy, so don't rush it. Sit in it, let it flood you. Let it shape your walk, your voice, your gaze. Let it burn away every false identity you ever wore just to survive. You're not surviving anymore. You're becoming fully, freely, finally. You're remembering that you were never lost. You were just layered. And now the layers are peeling back. And beneath it all, you, the real you, the anointed you, the appointed you, the radiant you. Welcome back. Think back. Chosen one. Not to the battle, but to what came after it. To the stillness that followed the storm. The strange sense of clarity that settled in your bones. The way your spirit felt cleaner, lighter, sharper. Like something inside you had broken, but something deeper had awakened. Have you noticed that after every spiritual attack, something in you shifts? That after the nights where you cried the hardest, wrestled the deepest, or felt the most spiritually drained, you rose differently. You saw differently. You moved differently. You didn't have the words for it. Maybe. But you felt the difference. It wasn't just recovery, it was rebirth. Because every battle you've endured has left you more powerful than the last. You don't come out the same. You come out wiser, more aware, more sensitive to energy, more anchored in what matters, and less available to what doesn't. It's like each confrontation with darkness strips away another layer of illusion. You stop trying to force connections that don't flow. You stop ignoring the warnings your gut gives you. You stop allowing access to people who feel off, even if they say all the right things. It's not trauma, it's transformation. Your spirit is being upgraded. You're being recalibrated to a higher frequency. And that means your internal compass gets stronger. It gets louder. You don't just see people anymore, you read them. You feel their energy before they even speak. You know when someone's spirit is clean, and when it's cloaked in confusion or manipulation. And the more you trust that discernment, the more powerful it becomes. It's not paranoia, it's perception, and it was forged in battle. Because each time you faced spiritual resistance, each time you survived a dream attack, or felt the pressure of a dark presence in your room, or had that strange, emotional heaviness settle on you for no reason, you weren't just being attacked. You were being attuned. You were being prepared for deeper truths, bigger assignments, greater responsibility. And no, you didn't ask for it. But your soul agreed to it before you even came here. That's why the battles feel so personal, so targeted, because they are. But so is your growth. So is your refinement. And after every battle, after every spiritual challenge, you don't just bounce back. You rise higher. The fear that used to grip you, it doesn't hold the same weight anymore. The patterns that used to trap you, you see right through them now. The people that once drained you, they don't even get access anymore. You've evolved. And the more you evolve, the more invisible barriers dissolve. Have you noticed how life starts to move when you shift? How opportunities show up after a deep inner release? How new people enter your life with resonance that feels familiar? Even if you've never met before, that's not coincidence. That's the echo of elevation. Because every spiritual battle is followed by a shift. And that shift always moves you closer to who you really are. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining your vibe. You stop over-accommodating people who misread your stillness as weakness. Because now, you know that your sensitivity is strength, that your intuition is intelligence, that your presence is disruptive because it carries truth. And people don't always like truth, especially when it comes wrapped in a quiet spirit, steady gaze, and unwavering peace. You've become what the enemy feared you'd become, unbothered by nonsense, unshakable in chaos, untouchable by manipulation, because you no longer depend on external validation. You don't need the room to clap for you anymore. You're not moved by who praises you or who doesn't. You're moved by alignment, by frequency, by divine instruction. And that's the shift. That's what happens after the battle. The veil gets thinner, your knowing gets clearer, your voice gets steadier. You stop waiting for the world to give you permission to walk in purpose, and you just walk. Because now you understand spiritual warfare isn't just about surviving the night. It's about stepping into the next day with more light, with more sovereignty, with more awareness of the tools you carry and the energy you no longer entertain. The old version of you, the one who doubted herself, the one who made excuses for other people's toxic behavior, the one who kept giving chances to chaos disguised as connection. She's gone. She didn't survive the fire. But the version of you that emerged, she's not going anywhere. She's focused, sharp, rooted, soft, but never naive again, open, but no longer exposed. You've learned the power of boundaried radiance. You shine, but you don't let just anyone near the flame, because you know what it took to ignite it, and you're not letting it be drained. Not by familiarity, not by guilt, not by spiritual vampires that cloak themselves in charisma, because now you see everything. And that's not a burden, that's a blessing. So don't mourn the old versions of you that couldn't hold this light. Honor them. They carried you here. But let them rest. Let them go. You're in a new season, one where your discernment is divine. Your clarity is currency, and your alignment is your armor. This is your afterglow. This is the radiance that follows the reckoning. This is the power that comes after the fire. Own it. Walk in it. Shine anyway. So here you are now, standing at the edge of what was and the beginning of what is. You've been through the shadow. You've walked through nights most people wouldn't have survived. You've battled demons, some from within, some from without. You've wrestled in the dark with questions no one could answer. You've cried out in the silence and waited for answers that didn't come in words, but in shifts, in signs, in stillness. And somehow, through it all, your light never died. It flickered, it dimmed, it hid, but it never went out. Because you, chosen one, were not built to break. You were built to become, and through every trial, every attack, every false accusation, every sleepless night, every spiritual ambush, your soul was sharpening. Your awareness was expanding. Your aura was fortifying. You weren't just being tested, you were being transformed. You are not who you were. You're not even who you were yesterday, because the path of the Anointed is not a linear one, it's a spiral. With every loop, you go deeper. With every return, you rise higher. With every repetition, your spirit integrates new truth. Stronger, clearer, quieter, more powerful. And now you carry the evidence, not on your skin, but in your stillness, not in your voice, but in your vibration, not in your words, but in your walk. You've stopped needing to convince people of your light. Now you just shine. And if they see it, they see it. If they don't, that's okay. Because not everyone is meant to witness your rise. This path isn't for the masses. It never has been. It's for the remnant, the hidden ones, the quiet storm carriers, the midnight warriors, the ones who break generational chains without applause, the ones who speak to angels in dreams, the ones who are sent ahead of time, misunderstood for years, and only recognized after the shift happens. That's you. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are exactly where you need to be. Not perfect, but positioned. And that position, it's prophetic. You've been stationed, not just in time, but in frequency. You are tuned into what others ignore. You feel what others deny. You move when others freeze. Because your compass isn't external, it's eternal. That's your power. That's your covering. That's your calling. And now it's time to walk in it fully. No more doubting. No more shrinking. No more explaining your warfare to people who've never stepped foot in a battlefield. No more trying to heal in environments that are the very source of your wounding. You've outgrown it all, and your future. It doesn't need your fear. It needs your faith. So, as we close this message, let this final moment settle into your soul. Let these words move from sound to seed. Let this frequency wrap around you like a spiritual blanket. And as it does, breathe. Slowly, gently, fully, because this is your divine confirmation. You are protected. You are covered in ways you cannot always see, but are always surrounded by. The nights may come heavy, but the light in you burns brighter than anything trying to reach you. You are not forgotten, not overlooked, not abandoned. Even in silence, you are seen. Even in stillness, you are carried. You are walking proof that angels exist, because heaven has assigned them to guard you. Your aura glows with memory of who you were, of who you are, of who you're becoming. You are not just surviving, you are expanding. You are shedding skin, breaking molds, releasing what was never meant to stay. And as you release, you rise. This next season of your life will not look like the last. You've paid a price in secret, and now heaven is about to honor you in the open. You are not for everyone. You never were, because the remnant is always rare, always refined, always radiant. So walk boldly now, with the knowing that your presence is confirmation, your voice is vibration, your frequency is flame. Let the world adjust, and let your light be the proof. If this message stirred something deep in your soul, let it anchor you. Share it. Send it to another warrior walking through their own fire. Like, comment, subscribe, because this isn't just content. It's a covering. It's a clarion. It's a confirmation. God bless you.